Diving right in.
So here's the first question.
All right, so first question, emailed us in. Spell checker, how to limit suggestions to those with unique stems. Ooh, okay, so direct spell checker, Russian words, a lot of suggestions, same result because they query the word and the suggestions have the same stem. How can I configure the spell checker to return only suggestions with different stems? That is an excellent question. I'm now regretting that I spent a lot of time today in the bar with the judges instead of refreshing myself on some of the features of Solr that I don't use on a daily basis. Wow. Yeah, okay, so first, right. First of all, standard Stump trick. Does anyone need me to explain the question further? While I stall for time. This is like the most, see, here's the problem. This is Steve's first time moderating, and I gave him all the advice on what a good moderator should do, including, distilling the question and making sure the questions were really easy to understand. And as a result, I have now lost all of my ability to pretend I don't know what the question is asking, because it's pretty much just the most clear, straightforward question you can imagine. So there's a lot of different ways to power the spell checker. In this case, he's using direct spell checker, which comes off the index. You could consider an alternative spell checker implementation built off a dictionary where you have already removed the duplicate words or the words that stem the same way. But you could also continue to use the direct spell checker off of another field in your index where you've already done that. The question is, what's the easiest way to sort of build that? I don't know enough about the support for Russian in particular to know if we have a good stemmer where you could index all these words and get just the roots. But not with, there's the algorithmic stemmers that produce terms that aren't necessarily real words. You wouldn't want that powering direct spell checker, obviously, because then you get made up gibberish stems. But I don't know if there's a good one. What you really want is kind of like a dictionary-based stemmer that says, I'm not going to try with the Russian, but the cat example, you want a dictionary-based stemmer that knows cat and cats, that the root of that is cat. So if you have a dictionary-based stemmer for Russian, you could then put kauka. Anybody speak Russian?
Koshka.
Koshka. Oh, is this your question? I'm sorry. I'm already off to a bad start. I should have asked if you were here and asked you to come up. How do you say that word? It doesn't work. Oh, the mic's not on. Can we turn on the floor mic? Sorry. There you go. Oh.
Hello?
Hello.
Koshka.
Koshka. So if you could have a dictionary-based stemmer where koshka and how do you say the plural?
Koshku, koshki.
Koshki? You sound like you don't know, so I'm starting to be concerned here. My point is, if you have a dictionary-based stemmer that maps all of those down to koshka, as opposed to the root stem of just kosh, then you can index with that stemmer turned on and into a special field for your spelling and use that field for your auto-suggestion.
But then I need a lemmatizer to lemmatize all words into the same lemma.
Right, but only in the field that you use for auto-suggest. You see what I'm saying?
I don't have a lemmatizer.
Well, right.
That's a different.
This is the crux of my answer is you got to get yourself one of those things. Right, that's true. I see our one-armed bandit of today waving his hand back there. The fine folks at Basis, I believe, have a. Yeah, that's right. Basis, one of the sponsors, they're out there. They've got all sorts of language tools. Benson back there is waving his one arm frantically to draw attention to the fact that they have one of these. So you may want to talk to them. Do the judges have any better answers than a dictionary-based stemmer? Do the judges have any answers at all?
I think you got it.
I was thinking the same thing you said. I don't know what that
Yeah. This was more about the spell checker and assuming that you have a stemmer that produces words. Use the direct spell checker on that.
I guess ignoring the stems, ignoring the issue in my suggestion of a dictionary-based stemmer, do you have any better suggestions for the root of the question of spell checking, of auto suggestions that don't do multiple words from the same stem.
You need your own dictionary or field
Yeah.
with the right stuff.
Maybe the analyzing suggester, but I don't know. I don't actually know what it does in this case.
Right, yeah, that's, I mean,
You could try it.
so for those of you who don't understand Robert on 4 beers, what he said was there's an analyzing suggester, which is a different implementation of suggester that doesn't use the direct spell check at all. But it works in a very similar way using the analyzers configured for your field. And his point was that would be an interesting suggester to try in this use case. The look of incredulity on this gentleman's face tells me that he's probably already tried this. No? Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, it's your question. Did you try the analyzing suggester?
Which?
It's called analyzing suggester, as opposed to, so there's multiple suggester implementations, one of which is backed by the direct spell checker. But there's a relatively new one. It became available in 4.2 or 4.1.
One of those.
Yes. So there's a relatively new suggester specifically for autocorrect auto suggest, as opposed to like sort of just basic spell correcting. But for the auto suggest use case called analyzing suggester. We don't know if it'll solve this problem. The fact that he doesn't know, even though he worked on most of it, is kind of scary, because then I don't feel bad about the fact that I don't know if it'll solve this problem. But it is worth looking into. But I still think either way, you need a dictionary-based stemmer as opposed to an algorithmic-based stemmer to really know I can throw away these 2 words, but what I'm going to give you is still a word. Still something you're willing to show to the user. Did you have any better ideas? No.
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But that's a good question. Thank you very much. Artem, right? Am I saying your name right? Artem? Thank you, Artem. Thank you. Good question. Take it away. Wait a minute. Wait. I haven't looked at the bottom of the slide, but I'm guessing it says McHale. No. Oh, this is not a McHale question. Interesting. Okay. Forgive me for a moment while I read my question here. Disaster recovery. Using Solr Expedia. Oh, sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is the person who asked this question here? Can they come up to the mic?
Huaxi Wang.
Washi Wong? What? Okay, well, just if you're here, go ahead and come up to the mic. If not, I'm going to keep reading. So using Solr Cloud as well as Zookeeper, how Solr interacts with Zookeeper. Zookeeper's external, 2 JVMs on the same box, 3 Solr node clouds. Both Solr and Zookeeper might go down. When this happens, which one should we start first? The node that went down with the leader is also leader election. Haven't found any good documentation on this, so no more regardless. And then there's a whole another paragraph here. So I don't know what DR means in this sentence.
Disaster recovery.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Damn.
That's the guy who asked the question.
Tough room. Jesus. There's a lot of words I don't know what they mean. I wouldn't say I'm stumped. I mean, geez. Okay. I'm surprised you guys didn't give me a hard time because I didn't know Russian. All right. So when the production boxes went down, we can point at disaster recovery, but how about recovering data for production boxes? Avoid reindexing data. Dispense identical configurations. Index should be compatible. All right, so I'm going to answer these in reverse order because I remember the last part of the question. I have already forgotten the first part of the question. So as long as you're running the same versions of Solr, then yes, the index format is compatible because that's the only way Solr can read the index is that it knows the right format. And if you're running 2 versions of Solr, it doesn't matter that it's from a different piece of physical hardware. Going back to the first part of the question here. Well, okay, so leader election process. We haven't found any documentation on this and would like to know more regarding this topic. If you'd like to know more regarding this topic, Mark Miller is giving a talk tomorrow. You awake, Mark?
Not the chump.
What? Yeah, all right.
Chump, you got to answer first.
Mark Miller is giving a talk tomorrow on Solr Cloud and using it as a NoSQL store, and he could probably explain in a lot of detail how leader election works. The bottom line is you don't need to be overly worried about which node is the leader. You don't need to worry about the fact that leader election is happening. That's the point. It happens. It takes care of it for you. Someone will make sure that they are the leader. Excuse me. As far as what goes down, if they go down, Well, okay, so to put this in perspective, if Zookeeper goes down, you're screwed. I mean, that's why you want multiple Zookeeper nodes. That's why you want a quorum. I would definitely think that you should primarily be concerned about Zookeeper going down and want to bring that back up before Solr comes back up. But it shouldn't matter too much because you have a quorum. If you only have one Zookeeper node, then, oh yeah, God, yes, bring that up right away. Because none of your other nodes are going to work. None of your other Solr nodes are going to work either. But if you've got a quorum of multiple Zookeeper nodes, the fact that one of them goes down it shouldn't affect any of your live Solr nodes because they have other Zookeeper nodes to talk to. And if you bring up a crashed Solr node, it's got the other Zookeeper nodes in the quorum to talk to as well. So it should, all right, well, Yannick's laughing at me, which either means there's a bug or I'm wrong.
Is the guy who asked the question not here?
No.
Yeah.
Right, he's probably in the process of restarting Zookeeper, it sounds like.
So anyway, I would say if all of Zookeeper goes down, actually Solr still works, you can still search, you just can't index. So if both Solr and Zookeeper go down, you need to start Zookeeper first, because if you start Solr and it can't talk to Zookeeper, those cores are not going to start. So if you start Solr first, nothing's going to happen.
Right, but
so
I'm taking it
they'll
as
wait.
a given.
They'll wait a long time. So you can
Right.
start Solr first, but if you don't start Zookeeper, nothing's going to happen.
But I'm taking it as a given that when he's describing a machine goes down, he means they have n machines all running Solr and all running Zookeeper.
He says if Zookeeper and Solr goes down.
Right,
If they
but
both
I think
fully
he
go
means on
down,
one
you
machine,
need to start Zookeeper first.
because it says
bro.
they're sharing hardware, right? The point is he's saying they run Zookeeper as its own process on the same box as Solr, but I'm assuming there are multiple boxes running this if he's that worried about disaster recovery, right? So I think the real question is if a box that had both Solr and Zookeeper crashes, like physical hardware crashes, so that they have to bring up that machine again and restart Solr and restart Zookeeper. But presumably there's other nodes. I can't imagine he's running Solr Cloud on one Solr node and one Zookeeper node.
If all your nodes don't go down, then it's not really a problem because occasional nodes can go down.
That's
the
the
point.
Yeah.
That
So
was the
anyway,
crux
I don't
of my
know.
answer,
Whatever
in case
one
it
you
was
start
not.
first doesn't really matter, but it's not going to work until Zookeeper is up. The Solr nodes will wait till Zookeeper is up a certain amount of time.
So you can start them
And his
concurrently.
problem with copying an index over is perhaps because he's not copying the transaction log folder too.
Oh, that's a good
otherwise, it's going
point.
to work.
That's a good point. Yeah, so if you're trying to bring up another box that had a heart crash that didn't shut down cleanly, you might have to worry about that transaction log in addition to that index. This is not your question, Mikhail. I already checked. You have a piece of
Doesn't seem
feedback?
to work, isn't that well defined.
All right, come up to the mic, man. What are you doing? You know they can't hear you at home. As a reminder to everyone in the room, the folks at home are watching and listening, and they can't hear you when you just shout and wave your hand. Go ahead, Mikhail. Yeah, wave to the camera, Mikhail.
Okay, I just briefly skimmed this question, and what I can conclude, these guys has another cluster, so just disaster recovery cluster, like a second copy of the production hardware, second, and they want to they want to migrate into that second hardware when the primary cluster is down. It's written in the third paragraph, and
It's not working as an active system. That's a lie.
right.
So yeah, I don't know how to answer the question. He says Solr is working as an active system across two
Oh, I
data
missed that.
centers. It can't right now. So.
Right. Yeah,
I
missed
mean,
that
I
part.
guess it can, but like, it's going to be really slow. So I don't think they're doing that. And if you're doing that, you don't have to worry about disaster recovery because if some nodes go down, then they're going to be working in the other data center, the nodes that are still up there.
Mark,
And Zookeeper running in two data centers is hard. You need like an arbitrator to like break ties, and I'm not sure that they've really got a solution for that.
I'm gonna, Mikhail, I totally missed the active line. That would have definitely, I would have pointed out that that's bad. You caught that. We have some books up here. You want to come pick out a book, or do you not want to have to carry it back with you on the plane? I want to give you a book because you spotted that. I totally missed that. So if you'd like a book, please come up and take a book.
which
But
one?
Any
Which
book. Come pick a book. I don't care.
I can choose.
Yeah, choose whatever you want. I'm not gonna make you take a book you don't want. I understand. I understand. You don't want a lot of I believe. And also for those who don't know Mikhail, he's my nemesis in Stump the Chump. I'm sure you will see his name on a slide coming up. He flew all the way from Russia, and I totally understand if he doesn't want to have to lug one of these books all the way back home. So.
question
Any other
here
comments
anyway?
on this question? Any other?
It's hard to find the question.
Right. All right. I don't feel stumped then because none of the judges are giving me anything better to work with. So I think maybe it's a wash.
All right, we'll do one more emailed question and then go to the audience.
This is a big question.
Yeah, relax. Yeah, it's not yours. We're fine. All right.
Point in time.
Okay. How to query efficiently for point in time and time range containment within indexed time ranges. All right, so I haven't read the rest of this, but I'm already feeling pretty good because I actually gave a little talk on this not too long ago. So assuming it means what I think it means, but that's going to take me about 45 minutes to figure out, then I think I have an answer to this. So they're indexing pharmacies, businesses that have opening times. On every day of the week, they have multiple times when they're open. The challenge is find a way to store these values and make them searchable. Two types of queries. Is the pharmacy open now? And will the pharmacy be open on Thursdays between 4 and 3? What they're currently using is a multi-valued, what the? Okay, wait, yeah, so all right. So they're using these multi-value fields, and then I can do queries like this. And what they're showing you here, what you may not be able to read, is they're using the spatial recursive prefix tree field type, and then they're using intersect queries on these ranges, which now has me worried because this is what I was going to say was the answer, but clearly this isn't working for them. There is, for people who haven't followed this or who don't know what the hell's going on, before I actually finish reading the slide because I'm stalling for time some more, there's a lot of really great work that David Smiley did on spatial logic. And one of the things he mentioned in response to a question on the mailing list a while back is how you can use this effectively for some time duration type queries, and he gave a couple examples, which then prompted me to go, holy shit, that's amazing. And I did some experiments on it and did a little meetup talk, and then I talked to David, and he updated some docs. And so now it's actually like fairly well documented how to sort of take advantage of this. There's a wiki page. If you look on the Solr wiki, which is hopefully up today, it wasn't yesterday, there's a spatial time duration, I think it's called, wiki page. Is Smiley in the room? Right here. All right, good. You're my backup. So now I'm going to read why this doesn't work for the guy, and then I'm going to probably go to you for help if I have to. The last query is already a problem because if pharmacy's open at 12, this query still matches, but the user wanted to query if his selected time range is a subset of the available opening time. Okay, so I believe, if I'm understanding the problem here, the issue is what?
I just want to point out, it may be hard to tell, but I didn't actually include everything in the email. That ellipsis.
There was more?
It's not an intersection. It's like
So those fields are one per day of the week. Those are German days of the week. So there's Montag.
Opening hours, opening
Dienstag,
hours.
the last
Okay,
one
gotcha,
is
right. All right.
Sonntag.
So one field per day of the week.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Right. So indicates if a pharmacy is open Monday at 7, right? And then indicates a pharmacy open sometime between 9 and 12 to do the overlap. Okay, right. So it's still, whether or not you have one field per day of the week or not is kind of, you might actually be able to avoid that if you model your data differently. You guys all right over there? All right. But I think the issue that he's having here is one of precision. What happens when you use this recursive, I'm going to get this wrong, spatial recursive prefix tree field type, is that it's creating essentially polygons, which the way it was designed to be used are polygons that map over a map range and help you define spatial regions. But you can also do it in a completely hypothetical space. So you can do it in a hypothetical space where the x-axis is start time and the y-axis is end time. And your points there represent ranges. So 7.
Goddamn questions.
I'm having a conversation here. You know, 7 on the x-axis, 8 on the y-axis could mean you open at 7, you close at 8. And then there's ways to take advantage of these intersect queries where you create bounding boxes that if the point is inside, that means that it happens overlapping that time range or it happens intersecting that time range, etc. But the way that is actually implemented under the covers is through basically tiling. You can almost imagine it as like vector graphics, right? Where you know you have a point that goes from here to here, but when you actually render that on a monitor, there's pixels involved. So the math, the way that works is it has to actually, create little tiles and little panel tiles that are indexed as terms that sort of represent the ranges in your hypothetical spatial space. And there's ways to configure these field types around, like you see there, the world bounds and geo equals false. But there's also, I think it's called accuracy. I can't remember. There's a number there that is important that helps you control how big and how large these little tiles get, or the pixels get, when you're sort of rendering these vectors. And if you're not careful, a range query like this is going to match, just because even though the polygons wouldn't necessarily overlap in your hypothetical space, the polygons are close enough that the pixel is the same, right? It's almost an anti-aliasing problem for anybody who's ever worked with graphics. So you have to be a little more careful about what values you pick on these field types, but you also have to think a little harder about how you do these ranges. It might be that, if you're trying to get from 9 to 12, you have to decide, like, what interval do I actually care about? If the smallest granularity I care about is an hour, the right way to do this is probably to query from 9 to 11.5. If the smallest interval you care about is 5 minutes, it's probably 9 to 11.98 or whatever the math works out to be. But this is on the wiki. It may not have been on the wiki when he asked this question, but I know Smiley wrote a bunch of good docs about this. Smiley, did I miss anything here?
I think at the very end we started to get it.
I came around.
You did get it at the very end. The main point is that you unbuffer that time range. So instead of 9 to 12, maybe it's 9 and a half to...
Right. So for people who are online watching the stream, or for people who couldn't hear Smiley because you're on this end of the room and you're as drunk as the judges, what he said was that most of what I said was bullshit stalling for time, and that towards the end, when I talked about really thinking carefully about how you model the ranges and the 11.5 instead of going to 12, that's really where it is, because you have to. It is as handy as it is to be able to do this for time ranges. It's not a slam dunk, and you actually have to think about how you're modeling this and how it's getting indexed as terms. So you have to decide what is the resolution I care about for my time durations, and sort of represent your values like that. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that none of these three guys have any idea what you're talking about, because I don't think any of them
into
work.
spatial stuff.
Does Robert know? Oh, do you have anything to add, Robert?
I mean, I had an opinion on it. I feel that, for these date ranges, adding these extra dimensions isn't very cool to do. I think it makes the problem more complicated. And also, it seems like the intersects operation is wrong if you want subset. Fundamentally, right? You're saying the problem is I want a subset, but I'm doing intersects. So maybe it should be some other operation, right?
Well, but the reason it's intersect is because it's modeling the start time on the x-axis and end time on the y-axis, which lets you do either subsets or overlaps or contains relationships, all using intersect. I think what Robert's getting at is the other way to do it is to model it as a linear dimension, and actually,
The extra dimensions is not, even if it works, I don't like it.
Right, but the reason, so just to be clear though, the reason that this is, you can actually go back, and this is, I think, documented on the wiki. It's definitely from the original thread. The reason for the extra dimensions, though, is if you deal with the multi-value case, this is actually the only way to deal with the fact that it has multiple open hours on the same day, and that you can pairwise match up the start and ends because they're 1 point in the 2D duration space. So if you only have to deal with single values per day, or single, like this is when it opens, this is when it closes, you can simplify things a lot, as Robert's talking about, with sort of a single dimension. But for the multi-value case, the multiple dimensions is sort of how that gets solved, which is all, like I say, elaborated on the wiki.
Okay, so we'd like to take a question from the audience, and we have Benson Margulies.
Oh,
Hang on, let's get this thing to go. Okay, so this is not just on behalf of me. If you needed to map Solr Lucene scores to the range 0 to 1 to make them comparable to other kinds of scores of other kinds of things in a larger system, what would you do?
I would not. So to elaborate on the question, what our friend Benson, the one-armed bandit, can you state up again? I've been meaning to ask you, what happened to your arm?
Right, this is how he spends time. A combination of middle age and taking up exercise belatedly led to arthroscopic surgery.
Ooh, all right. Yeah. Okay. So what our friend Benson asked about was taking scores that you get out of Solr, which can be arbitrary numbers, and trying to model that as a finite range. 0 to 1 is a finite range. 0 to 100. The point is, a lot of people really like the idea that they want to be able to know, how did my score rate on a scale of 1 to n, where n is fixed, so that they can then interleave that from multiple queries or combine it with scores from other systems. I don't have an answer for how to do that. I can't explain why it's a hard problem. The bulk of the reason why it's a hard problem is because in order to know, it's really easy to say something doesn't match, therefore its score is 0. Our lower bound is good. We're covered. Doesn't match, 0. The upper bound is where things get hard. And the reason things get hard on the upper bound is because you have to know what is the best possible match for a query. It may not actually be something that you got in your results from your query, right? Just because there's the number one result that matched your query here doesn't mean it's the number one result that could exist if you added documents later or if you deleted documents for your index, right? The best search for Bill Clinton in an index today is not necessarily the best search for Bill Clinton in that index tomorrow. And you don't want to say, well, I know what the highest possible scoring document is, and according to the Lucene formula, it's 27.8, because tomorrow there might be a better document that has that term more times and is shorter, et cetera, et cetera.
So, can I make
hold
your
on,
problem
hold
easier?
on. This is a long answer, man. You're going to give me this question. I gotta roll with it. So the problem is, a lot of this comes down to the fact that at the Lucene and Solr level, we don't know every possible query that you might give the system, right? A simple term query, you could actually look at the term stats of your index and say, I know what the highest possible TF-IDF score is for any one term. But you don't necessarily know what the highest possible score is for any possible query that anyone could generate using any possible query parser known to man. And because you don't know that, you can't figure out what that upper bound on the score is to then normalize everything. Now, in a specific use case, you could compute that. And
Well, in particular, if you say hold the index fixed and you hold at least the pattern of the query fixed, how would you compute that?
Right. So what he said was if you know that your index is static, documents aren't changing, they're not going to be added or going away, and you know that the query structure is the same, the way to determine what your sort of normalization factor is wow, that's okay. I know how I would do it. I don't know how I would explain how I would do it. You basically have to look at things like what is the shortest possible document in my index? What is the most common term in my index? This is like let's take the example of a single term query. If you know your query, what's the phrase I'm looking for? You know your realm of possible queries, the set of all possible queries is constrained to things that are simple term queries. Then you can look at the math of how a term query score is computed and say, if I know what the shortest possible document in the world is, and I know what the most common possible term in the world is, those are my theoretical bounds on my input, punch them into my scoring function, here is the theoretical bound on my output. Whatever your query structure is, you can do that same math. The term query example is simple. If you know you're gonna have some other query, it gets more complicated. But if you know that, if you know your index is fixed, you have all these constraints, you can absolutely compute that sort of one time and then plug that in later. I should also point out that I use the term TF-IDF a couple times in here. If you have other scoring models, which I am not an expert on, I am told that there are other scoring models where it is easier to do this normalization because just the way the scoring model works, it is more constrained in itself in terms of what it produces. But admittedly, I do not know enough about those to speculate on what is easier and hard. Do the judges have any comments to add?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All
next
right.
question.
Woo! Oh, hold on.
Point
Wait,
of
is this
order.
about the same question, Grant, or are you gonna? Yeah.
So if you go look in the Lucene mailing list from about 4 years ago, Jake Mannix has a really nice write-up of how he did this at one point in time to normalize scores. It involves some linear regression and things like that. So that may be useful.
Right. Yeah. This is if you're not on the Solr user mailing list and the Java user mailing list, Java-user at Lucene, Solr-user at Lucene, you are not hanging out with the rest of the cool kids who write about stuff like this and then forget that they wrote about it, and then years later, people are like, why isn't this documented anywhere? And it's because it's on the mailing list. Next question, yeah.
This is actually not a new question, but it's speaking to, you mentioned that you could use a different scoring approach to get this 0 to 1 range. So if you consider the cosine similarity, so if you take all of your TF IDFs and then plot them in n space, then you get two vectors between your search document and then the documents that you're looking for. And then you can take the cosine similarity between them. So you'll be able to find the implementation of that just on Wikipedia.
Right,
and that'll give
that
you
assumes you're dealing with simple terms in pure TF-IDF. Just out of the box, Solr can generate queries that use things like functions, or I'm just saying, like, even without any custom plugins or any custom similarity implementation or anything, you can get arbitrary scores. That's the sort of the general point I get. But you're talking about with simple terms or simple basic TF-IDF functions on term queries or phrase queries, you can compute that cosine similarity.
Yeah, that might be a good solution if you limit your problem.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
So let's go to an email question.
Poor man's analytical engine. Oh, this is fucking Mikhail. Are you gonna step up to the mic or just shame me like from your slouched posture over there? All right. Let me read this thing here. Best way. I want to know the best way to build a real-time analytical engine. That's funny. I bet there's a lot of people in here who want to know the best way to make it. This is a startup question here. Facts or events are constantly arriving.
Constantly arrives.
Constantly. Don't be giving the man a hard time.
I'm just reading it.
Constantly. Wait, are these the same? Okay. I need to calculate simple OLAP cubes. Fuck me, OLAP. What the hell is an OLAP cube? Jiminy Christ, dude! Are you at the right conference? I don't even know what that means. Okay. Other than Mikhail, can somebody come to a mic and explain to me what an OLAP cube is? There's a book in it for you if I can understand you in less than 30 seconds. Nobody in the room but Mikhail knows what an OLAP cube is. That's what I've just learned here. Am I right? It's a Russian. Seriously, I want a show of hands. You don't have to stand up.
They're composed of cats.
What?
They're composed of cats.
Cats. All right. I want a quick show of hands. Who actually knows what an OLAP cube is? I'm not going to make you stand up or talk. I just want to know. All right. Wow. All right. Okay. All right. Now I actually feel bad. I actually feel bad that I don't know what an OLAP cube is. I'm gonna go look up OLAP cubes later because clearly I am not hanging out with the cool kids. All right. So will anybody who raised their hand volunteer to come up to a mic to explain to me and everybody else what an OLAP cube is? Oh wait, hold on. Can we get the mic on? Sorry. Yeah, just keep talking. They're on.
Hello?
Yeah.
All right, so selects, like a SQL statement, right? There's some part that's like a dimension, right? So you have a set of name equals Bob and zip code equals 95061, right? So for those two dimensions, you'll want on some other dimensions to get either a group by like a sum of some sort of aggregate. That's sort of what the cube represents. You've got some fixed dimensions, like that are your x, y, you can think of that, and then some others that are computed, and that's what the cubes represent. Dimensions and measures. I don't know if that really.
What the fuck does OLAP mean?
OLAP is like, OLTP, OLAP. There are two types of database systems. Yeah, analytic process.
All right. Yeah. So for everybody at home who is using all of their bandwidth watching this stream and not looking up OLAP cubes on Wikipedia, because from the time I asked this question to now, everybody in this room has now able to raise their hand because they've all read it on Wikipedia. OLAP stands for online. I already forgot. Online analytical processing.
Dude, I read it. I still don't know what it is.
Wait, so it's an acronym where they take 2 letters from each word? That doesn't even fucking make sense. All right. back to the question, because I already forgot what the fuck we were talking about. I need to calculate OLAP cubes for simple dimensions and constraints, i.e., I should have just fucking kept reading. It explains it right here. User submits constraints that filter some set of events, and then we need to enumerate all the combinations of values from the given dimensions and count the events which hit a particular cell, like the number of events that occur in state California for age 22, etc. Data value and update rate is really high. Big data, obviously. Soft real time is enough. Yeah. Okay, so for the people who have Wikipedia up, just to make sure I understand this.
Can I come back?
Yeah.
So I think all he's saying here is that you want...
We could ask him, but he's too lazy to stand up. No, go ahead.
He just wants the sums to be continuously computed, so that when you look it up, you find it. You have the filtered conditions, but you also want to get like a sum or an average or something.
Over other fields.
Count is enough. And you just, as your data flows in, you want to keep the counts of things so that when you look it up, it's there.
You want the count of all things that match every permutation of state and age, right? Okay. All right. So the way I understand the question for the other people who are like, what the fuck is everybody talking about? Imagine you have an index of people, and in that index you have the state that they live in, and there's 50 of them, for those of you that don't know. And you also have how old they are, which is a weird thing to model in an index, because usually you put the birthday. But let's just say you have the index as an age, and you rebuild your index every day, because everybody has a birthday once in a while. You want to be able to say, it's the weirdest fucking thing. I don't understand. You want to be able to say, like, hey, find me all the people named Bob, and then give me a OLAP cube that tells me for all the people named Bob, what states are they in, and how old are they, right? So Solr has a feature that does this. It's called pivot faceting, right? Which I like to call, the reason it's called pivot faceting is because once upon a time I used Excel, and Excel had a feature called pivot tables.
And that's what these are.
Right, yeah, well see, now I fucking know that after everybody looked it up on Wikipedia. So Excel had a feature called pivot tables, which would let you do this, and so when we added this feature to Solr, we called it pivot faceting, because I didn't, go to fucking grad school, and I don't know what an OLAP cube is. Or I would have called it OLAP faceting, and then I would have been all smarty pants. So the feature exists, you can do it, you can say, like, I think of it as predictive faceting, where you say, like, if I filtered on state, then what would the counts be for all the ages, right? It's like predictive, like, if I filtered on California, what would the age be? I think the problem here really comes down to this last part, where he's like, it's big data, like, I need this to be fucking fast. And pivot faceting is not super fast. I mean, I'll grant you that.
Isn't it also single node?
There's a patch. It works.
There's a patch.
Yeah.
Someone committed.
So the comment from the peanut gallery here, Trey, one of our speakers, pointed out that pivot faceting is in fact, Miller, I'm already forgetting shit. Miller pointed out that pivot faceting is single node only, it won't work in distributed. And Trey pointed out that someone is working on a patch to make distributed pivot faceting. I actually knew that before these busybodies jumped up and yelled and shit. Well, he didn't jump up, and neither did he.
Man.
So the answer to the question is, I don't know how to make it fast. I know how to make it distributed. I don't know how to make it fast, unfortunately. Does anybody on the stage want to offer an answer at how to make it work better with real-time search?
He says only soft real-time. It's not like hard real-time.
So soft real-time in your mind is once a day?
Maybe it's fast enough. I don't know.
Does anybody have a productive answer to how to make it fast?
Do you know how fast pivot faceting is? Maybe it's fast enough.
Well, I know it's not fast enough for him, because as soon as I said the crux of the question is this last sentence, he went...
All right, fair enough.
He
if
gave
he
me
says
the,
it's
like,
not
yep,
fast
you're
enough,
on
I
it,
believe
fucker.
it. This guy knows, though.
Yannick is still thinking very hard, so I'm going to wait for smoke to
Take
come
the
out of his
guy
ears.
in the orange shirt.
What? Oh, okay. There's a mic. You know where it is. Come on. Oh, wait. Yeah, who actually explained what OLAP is? Where'd he go? He was sitting over here. Yeah, you want a book? Come get a book. Seriously, come get a book. We're not going to wait for you, though, man. Hurry up. Yeah, sorry. You were about to say... Yeah, I already forgot why you stood up.
Yes, one of the options is to split into shards this thing over, for example, the state, maybe the age, and so on, you will reduce an amount of data and you will be able to calculate them fast. But you will lose a bit of granularity, especially if there is no like joining of this OLAP cube backbones.
Right, right. Okay, so to clarify, if I understand correctly, and I think I do, but I have been wrong before, his point is that, wow. Right, so the point is if the way you shard your data is based on some of the dimensions you're dealing with, then you simplify the amount of processing that needs to happen to compute each of those counts. So if you know, for example, that everybody in a state is on one shard, then there's a lot less permutations to deal with. Yeah, right. So that helps speed up the processing in theory. I think that's the best I got. I don't think anybody, no? All right.
Otherwise, you just do another faceting implementation.
Right, or write a new faceting implementation, and we will, yeah. I like that answer. Okay.
This guy wants a book.
Do you have a new question or a comment on this question? All right, I thought this was very clear, but I'm gonna point out, if you have something to say, you need to be at a mic. If it's a new question, if it's a comment on the current question, please come up to the mic. Either way, because otherwise there's a lot of lights. I can't really see when people are trying to get my attention. So, yes, sir. What was your name?
Okay, Taryn Musselwhite.
Taryn, nice to meet you.
Yep. Sorry. Just an idea that popped in my head. Solr doesn't have the feature, but I know that in Elasticsearch it has percolation, where you can set basically rules that when a document comes, you can basically say, does it match the list of rules? And I was thinking if you had something in close to percolation, if you kind of faked that in Solr, and maybe did atomic updates where your particular rule, the stat that you were interested in, if your rule is state equals California and age equals 22, and you had your count or your other stats that you're interested in as your other values for that rule, but the rule could sit into its own collection, its own side collection, and you could just apply atomic updates to affect the rules that are in the core to update those counts or whatever increment, as you go and as you build. That way, it's sitting in its own core. The rule itself is in a different core. It'll exceptionally be fast because the number of rules aren't going to be very many.
Okay, so that's a good idea. To elaborate on what you're talking about, you could actually write, for example, an update processor that as documents are added, the update processor could say, I need to keep track of stats on all these permutations and increment counters. Where you'll have a problem, though, with an implementation like that is deletes, right? Because a delete by query, for example, you could easily, as documents come into your index or as documents are updated, you could easily be maintaining counts of all the permutations of age and state. And you could say, oh, I got a new one that's in California and it's 22, so I'm gonna increment that number. And you could theoretically keep some data structures that also help you keep track of the deletes by ID to know, well, what was the document? I have an ID of a document I'm gonna delete. Let's do a quick lookup on that document and let's update that count. Delete by query is gonna start to get more complicated though. Because you're basically going to have to first do the query and find all the documents that match it, and then iterate over all of them and update the counts. And that, you're probably going to get to the point where that starts being just as bad as just recomputing. Sure.
A lot of people don't need to delete by query, though.
What?
A lot of people don't need to delete by query.
Well, that's true, right? If you don't need to delete by query, then yeah, you could probably implement that, decently. But that's where you might run into problems. True. So,
come get a book.
Yeah, that was a good. Yeah, come on, grab a book. Why not? People read, right? People like books. Yeah? All right, maybe it's just me. Do we have another? Oh, there's already one on screen. I need to pay more attention.
Another Mikhail. What?
Is Lucene moving to long doc IDs? I wonder why doc set iterated cost is declared as public abstract long cost, but doc ID still returns an int. Does it mean that Lucene are turning to many billions documents index?
There was actually a question on the Solr user list today asking the same question. So people want to know.
Right. Well, so there's really, I feel like there's two questions here. So the first question is, why is cost a long? And that's probably because Candace wrote it that way, is my guess.
Newer knows.
All right.
There's a good reason.
So I've already gotten that part of the question wrong. So we'll come back to Robert as to why that's a long. I don't actually think though that there's necessarily a direct correlation. I would not assume because that's long that doc IDs are going to move to long. The reason. What?
What do doc IDs have
Exactly.
to do with
That's
cost?
my question. Is I don't know what the doc IDs have to do with cost. If you go way back, the reason doc IDs were ints is because for the majority of the data you're dealing with, an int is probably enough. And if you make it a long, you're basically doubling the amount of space you have to keep track of these IDs in a lot of data structures. Now, with a lot of the compressed data structures and the v-ints and all, the new fancy in air quotes, because I only have one hand to work with. Maybe that doesn't matter anymore, but also when you get to the point where an int is not enough, you probably want to be sharding this out to multiple nodes anyway, so it may not matter.
You definitely want to be.
Yeah, you definitely want to be. Unless your data is so small that the doc ID is the only thing you're keeping track of, you probably want to be sharding it out. Would you like to elaborate as to why cost is long?
Yeah, but I kind of think you're stumped, but but it explains kind of in the Java docs why it does this.
Well,
not exactly. But
Steven put the Java docs up here, so all I have to go with is public abstract long cost.
Well, the idea here for this cost method is when we're doing like a conjunction or something like min should match, which is sort of like a conjunction, but not really. But anyway, we need to sort the subscores by the ones that match the most documents versus the ones that match the least, because we're trying to intersect them efficiently. Then what we do is we try to have an idea of what is the upper bound on how many documents this score may match, right? And so if you think of a complicated Boolean expression or whatever, we don't really know for like a disjunction, like how many, if you OR these two terms, like how many documents will it match, right? So the upper bound is you add them together. So it can easily overflow integer, even if you only have max doc. So the point is not that it means anything, it's just a value for sorting at this point, right? So you use this as like a sort key, and you can sort your scores based on cost, and you get the least costly score first, and do something with it.
So if doc IDs did go to long, you'd want this to be like a double long.
No, I mean it's just unrelated to doc IDs at all.
Well,
but
for example, you said how many docs might it match, and
I wouldn't want them to go to long.
You wouldn't even worry about it.
It's unrelated. I just made it long because I don't want to overflow, and then for this like really expensive query to be considered really cheap because it's negative.
Right. Okay.
Let's take a question from the audience.
Yeah. Anybody? I mean, if you have a question, go ahead and come up to the mic. That's how we know that there's questions from the audience. Otherwise, we have plenty of questions from email we can go to.
Double questions.
Let's do the guy in the back first. Sorry.
Oh,
No,
right,
you can stay up there. I'm just saying, we'll do the guy in the back first.
I can't see over him, so it's...
Oh, well, I'll come stand over here. What's your name?
John Berryman. I work with Open Source Connections.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, hey.
Hi. Anyway, so I've got a problem and then an easy question followed by a very hard question.
I like that we're going to do them in that order.
Okay. So let's say I've got a e-commerce site and I'm searching for dress shoes, and the first page of results looks just fine. But then there's a cool little text box, cool little box at the top that says, do you want to sort by popularity? I click it, and instead of seeing shiny brown leather things that go on my feet, I see pretty sundresses and tennis shoes and stuff like that. So how do I sort by popularity? This is the easy question, but not show dresses and stuff. I want to see dress shoes.
Okay. Well, there's a trade-off to be made, right? So if you want, you could say that as soon as somebody stops sorting by score, you're going to make the query more restrictive, right? That's the first choice. Mm-hmm. So the first choice is, do you care if the result count changes? If the first time somebody does a search for, well, I already forgot, what was it?
Dress shoes.
Dress
so
shoes, right.
Arguably, dresses should not belong in there.
Right. But if the first time somebody searches for dress shoes, they get 1,100 documents back, and all of the dress shoes bubbled at the top because of the high score, and all of the dresses where the description of the product says, looks great with these shoes, or a user comment or whatever, they're all bubbling down to the bottom because you've got a really good scoring function. But the point is the user sees on the page that 1,100 documents match, right? Mm-hmm. If you're okay with them saying now sort by popularity, and you're okay with that number 1,100 going away and being replaced with 200, then you can say that when you're not sorting by score, when you're sorting by popularity or price or whatever, you're going to be more restrictive and use a different scoring function to match only a subset of the really good documents. That's one approach. The second approach that I favor more, because I like that sort of consistent user experience of not like where the fuck did 1,000 documents go. 1,000. Yeah, I said it. That's how I roll.
Too much Coke, man.
Yeah. I'll say 1,100 too while I'm at it. I don't mind. I like to be more consistent. So what I do is I lie. I tell them that they're going to sort by popularity, but I don't actually tell them what is popularity? They don't know, right? I may be implementing popularity as total number of clicks amortized over the week times total number of purchases amortized over a month. Maybe that's how in my data warehousing system or whatever, I am crunching a number to come up with a popularity metric per product that I'm selling, right? But I'm probably not showing that number anywhere on the website. So when somebody says they want to sort by popularity, I don't have to actually sort by that number.
Right.
What I can sort by is a function that takes into account the score with the relevancy function of dress shoes against the important fields versus the less important fields, multiplied by my popularity number, so that I still have slightly less popular dress shoes scoring higher in my fake popularity score than dresses where someone said, "Oh my God, it looks so good with my shoes," in a user comment. That's how I like to solve that problem.
So kind of like a boosting
it becomes
function?
a lot harder when you have things like sort by price, however, because
Right.
Price is something you probably are actually showing the person.
Right.
I also think that this is where a lot more attention needs to be paid to the user interface of the experience. I think you want to spend a lot more time doing things like, when the user gives you your search input, you want to not only be searching across all the documents you have available. I really like the idea of you also search across a special collection that is the list of categories. And instead of, you don't necessarily drill down directly into a category, but not just faceting on categories, mind you, but also does this input match the name of a category? And if it does, maybe you directly filter on that category, or maybe you just surface it as like a little UI widget, like only show me this category. And you encourage the user to drill down before they change their sort on something like popularity. Or you choose to automatically filter on it for them and change their query, but you tell them you did that. You give them the option to back out. Because nothing is more annoying than the fact that I really was looking for dresses that look good with shoes, because I do that. That's how I roll. And when I type in that query, I'm like, fuck, it put me in the shoes category. Like, how do I get the fuck out of here? Like, I really wanted dresses that look good with shoes. So this is a terrible example for asking me, by the way, because I really like this problem, but I really don't give a shit about dresses or shoes. But that, to me, I feel like solving it through user experience and custom functions is really the good way to address this problem. Does anybody, before we move on to the hard part, does anybody have a follow-up over here on the judges? No? Yeah. They just want to drink. That's all. I promised them beer, and they're like, whatever, fuck it. Say whatever you want. I don't give a shit. What is the hard part of your question?
So honestly, you answered the hard way first. I think with popularity, you'll say you should lie, just like you said. And then I was going to ask, but price. But apparently. So I still don't quite understand how exactly you would implement that. If you had to sort by price.
How I would implement the sort by price?
No, you have to sort by price, but how do you cut off the less relevant stuff before you sort by price?
Oh, I see. Sorry, I only have two hands. Like I said, I would make the user do it. I would try to make the UI really convey to the user. I would either drill down into a specific category. The example you gave was very much about the notion of categories and a navigation type system in an e-commerce where the user's input happened to directly match a category. The sort of more general aspect of your question is a query which maybe it isn't specific to a category or isn't specific to some sort of logical navigation path, but does match many, many things, and you want to throw out the crap, right? You want to say, this is crap, I don't want it in there. Right. I don't have a really great answer for how to throw out the crap, largely because, as we talked about with Benson's question, the notion of normalizing scores. I have seen some interesting papers on the idea that you can, even without normalizing, you can look at things like where there's a steep drop-off in the scores.
Right.
So that regardless of what the range is, where the fuck are you going? Make sure your mic's off. Comedy gold, ladies and gentlemen, comedy gold. I'll be at Caesar's Palace all next week. No, so there have been people who have talked about, and I don't have a lot of practical experience with it, the notion of collecting score stats. There was a really good blog actually about it. I can't remember who wrote it, about like plugging into the post filter to, not because you actually want to filter, but because you want to analyze properties of the documents while they're being scored so that you can generate some cool stats and sort of build like a model of where the scores drop off. So then you can sort of think about, like, you do the query once to find that, and then you do the query again to sort of cut off at an arbitrary point.
Right.
But I still personally think the best approach to this is to really think more about the user experience and think more about conveying to the user, what they really want. Come up with a good scoring function, match as many docs as it actually matches. Don't really worry too much about, like, oh, I'm giving the user too many docs, and when they change the sort, it breaks. Think about how to convey to the user that what they're looking for matches tons of shit. So here's the ways they can narrow that down, right? So maybe sorting by price, because if you think about it, why do people sort by price? It's because they want to find cheap shit, or they want to find shit in their price range. So give them facets that let them say, this is my price range. Usually if somebody says I want to sort by price, it's either because they're on guilt and they're a greedy, vain person, and they really want to be able to buy the most expensive thing that matches, or they're on every other site in the planet, and they're a cheap-ass bastard, and they want to find the cheapest batteries they can find. But either way, you could solve that problem with like a faceting UI option as opposed to a sort option if your concern is, I'm going to give this guy crap, but it's the low-price crap. Right?
Okay.
That's the approach I would take.
Thanks.
Okay?
Come get a book, John.
What?
I actually have like we had the exact same problem.
Sorry, what was your name?
My name is Briggs.
Briggs?
Thompson.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too. Looks like you're having fun.
Aren't you having fun? Wait. Aren't you having fun too?
Oh yeah, I'm having a great time.
All right, good.
All right, so essentially, instead of actually sorting by that field, the way we handled it was just boosting differently. Right. But it was based off of the like a function query with the term frequency as like almost like a Boolean term frequency.
Were you here for the first part of my answer?
Yeah, no, but I thought that you were saying more of weighting the different terms differently as opposed to...
No. I meant taking your base query, like whatever the user inputted, and using that as input to a function where you then multiply by the price or the popularity or whatever. The key that I pointed out though is with things like popularity, it's a made up number. You're never showing it to the user. With a price, you are showing it to the user, and they get really annoyed when they say sort by price because I want the cheapest stuff first, and then they realize like they're not in a strict numerical order. Like that blows people's fucking minds because they're like, well, you don't even know how to sort numbers. Like what the hell is wrong with you? So they don't want to buy your shit.
So sorry for misunderstanding, but like a follow up to that is, one way to do that would be using term free the function query, right? To get like maybe you have two words. You get each one individually. You get if that's like, either yes or no, or both of these in the relevant fields that we care about, like title or something. But isn't that, when you call a word through term free, it's not getting stemmed or anything like that, right? That is the actual, your Correct. Input and looking for something in the index.
Correct.
So that's kind of flawed, right?
So the answer to your question is yes, but that's not really, what I meant was literally taking, because what you could do is with function queries, you can actually say like the score of an arbitrary query, not just like give me the TF of these terms, but you can actually say like my arbitrary query, which could come from the dismax parser, it could come from the Lucene parser, it could come from anything. Take that arbitrary query and use that as the input to another function. That's what I was kind of referring to.
All right, cool.
Okay? Yeah. Sorry, what was your name?
Tim Kemper from Boulder.
Tim, nice to meet you.
So we received some conflicting information last day or so, and so I'm coming to you for the real answer.
Conflicting information?
Yeah.
So in open source? That is unheard of. I have never.
They won't be disclosed. So is SolarJ a smart client in 4.2.1, or is that just on the roadmap?
Totally
Okay,
smart.
so
It's
the
smart.
question is,
Totally smart.
you're spoiling the answer. All right. So the question is about SolarJ, which is the Java client for Solr, and whether it's a smart client. And I'm going to put words in your mouth here, but I believe what he means by a smart client is when you're talking to Solr Cloud, is it sophisticated in dealing with the Solr Cloud nodes? Does it know to do the right thing, so to speak? For some definitions of the right thing, it's already very smart. In particular, it knows to send updates to leader nodes to save one hop. It doesn't know necessarily to send it to the right leader node, though. So it saves a hop in terms of sending the query to an arbitrary node, but it doesn't necessarily know yet exactly which leader is the first one it should go to. It also is smart in the sense that if nodes go down, it gets that information from Zookeeper and knows not to bother querying them again. So it is definitely smart. It is just not as smart as it could be. It will get smarter in the future. But for example, if you are writing code in Java and you're dealing with Solr Cloud and you're thinking, I'll just fucking do this myself. No, I mean, it's smarter than that. You know, it's better than just throwing up an arbitrary load balancer. It's going to know things that you can't know when you write the code. But it is not as smart as it could be, which may be where the conflicting information came from. Mark Miller over here clearly has something to say about this matter.
In front of class names. Because
That's true.
It's smart.
It is
but
called
it could be
Cloud
smart.
Solr Server. It is not called Smart Cloud Solr Server, but that's because we are not going to do that anymore under penalty of me hitting somebody with a microphone. There are classes in Solr that are called Smart. Actually, no, there are. Yeah, there are classes. There are classes in Lucene and Solr called Smart Foo and Fast Foo, and those were never a good idea, and we're never going to do that again. But just because a class isn't named Smart Foo or Fast Foo, don't assume that means it's a slow foo. We will put slow on things. Don't get me wrong. We're not, we have to have some way of conveying to you that, yeah, this works, but don't use it. And so we put slow on that.
Shouldn't we have a way to convey that this is fast and you should use it?
Yeah, it's the class. It's there.
Thank you.
Tim, come get a book.
Oh, Tim. Yeah, apparently Steve. Yeah, get a book. Yeah. How many more do we have?
We got
All right.
a bunch of more email questions. But somebody's up at the microphone, so why don't we?
If in a single collection, it only says the hop if you happen to hit the right leader.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's.
But he's saying it all.
Were you here for the first part of my question? No. My point was, it saves a hop. If it just randomized against any node, it might be a leader, it might not, and then the first thing would be to go to a leader.
Go to the right leader.
Go to the right. Oh, right, because the node.
Because you sort of implied that,
okay,
like.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. So I should elaborate on my answer. Is what Yannick's saying. If it goes to a leader, you have a good chance that it may be the right leader, and you have saved time. And if not, it will forward it to the right leader. If you go to an arbitrary node, it will forward to the right leader. So you have a good chance of saving hops. You are not guaranteed to save a hop. Where it really comes in, but that's on the update side. Where it really comes in handy is on the query side. It's smart enough to know which nodes are up and which nodes are down, and it gets that information from Zookeeper, and it's, It's
Can I ask why you're asking?
Yeah, I think when it was answered in our class, he was talking about smart enough to take a second.
Right. Okay. Right. So there was some confusion about the second hop. Yeah.
Are you concerned about it for some reason, like practical or?
No, he just got different information from what he had heard
just
before.
because it was
so,
conflicting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. We're going to Mike still, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to Mike. So what's your name, sir?
Tom Burton West.
Tom. Nice to meet you.
So if in the default Solr facets are the facet values that show are sorted by facet counts.
Yep.
So if I do a search and I get, say, 1 million hits, the facets are counted on all those million hits. But if my relevance ranking is working right, what I really care about is the facet counts for the n most relevant documents. Is there some way to implement that, and how do I figure out what n is?
Right. Okay. So for people who kind of didn't understand the question, facet counts right now are based on the total result set that matches your query. The question was about, is there a way to get facet result counts based on the best documents that match your query? If you had an n in mind, It's actually very doable, and I've done it in some custom plugins that I've done in the past. The problem is, like you say, picking n, right? And n could, for some definition of best, n could be different in every query. This goes back to C previous answer about some cool studies about like monitoring where the scores drop off to find that. It could definitely be done, but it tends to get, the reason I have never like tried to push it as a feature that I've invested a lot of time or energy or sweat into is that those counts then become interesting but not practical in my opinion, because they don't match what someone would get if they filtered. To me, the real value in the facet counts, the reason why I started using Lucene in the first place 12 years ago is that I realized I could do this to say, you did a search, here's some counts for some facets, and if you filter on one of those, you know what you're gonna get, right? So I realize there are other uses of facet counts, but yeah.
Let me add a layer that might solve that part of the problem, which is what I would want to do is, so in the UI, say for subject, I've only got room to show the top 10 values for that facet, and default I would show the top 10 counts. What I would like to do is say, what are the counts? What are the names of the values of the facets that are the top 10 in the most relevant, and then show the actual counts for the entire set, so if I click on it, that's how many I'm going to get. But the choice of what 10 values I show is based on only the counts for the most relevant.
Right. So again, I get what you're saying. Hopefully a lot of other people follow that, which is you're not going to lie to the user. You're still going to show them the real count that says if you filter on this, this is how many documents you'll get. But to decide what options to even give them, you want that to be based on the relevant stuff. You could, like I said, you could do it in two passes. The question is, what do you do in the first pass? How do you define the best results? And like you said, where n is, how do I compute n? That was even part of your question. That's really subjective in a lot of ways. And like see previous answers. What I have done in the past, for example, is to make my first query very restrictive, right? I'm not going to give the user these results, but as a way to find the best, I define the best as being, min should match, 100%, for example, or a query that only searches on the title field and doesn't search like the user comments field, things like that. Or where I change the boost values, for example, on my fields, where you do that query and you get back facet counts for it, and you use that to decide what the top ones you want to show are when you then issue your more broad query. The other thing I've done in a custom plugin is to do only based off of, I did a query where I only looked at the first n results where n was fixed, where I said for 100 results, and I actually looked at the doc list object that I got back. It's very similar to what you did if you wanted to do it per page, where you could just do that, client side. You could say, give me facet counts, and then, all right, what are the documents that appear on the first page? And now I'm going to issue a secondary query where I constrain my facets based on those doc IDs, for example, right? That's because for some reason that comes up a lot. People are like, I really want my facets to be based on the first page of results, which doesn't really make sense to me because, I don't know, anyway, whatever. People are weird. So you could do that, but it's very hard to think of it as a general feature in Solr that wouldn't require an ass ton of configuration. So I think it makes sense as a custom plugin. It's not hard to do as a custom plugin. I think it makes sense to do as like a multi-pass thing from the client. Having it be scriptable, for example, would probably be very handy. But it's really hard to solve that problem in the general case that then is useful to everybody with their own unique flavors of how they want to render it. It's doable. It's not generalizable, is I guess the best answer. Any other comments?
Someone in the audience says, prepare the chump. No offense.
Thanks. Clearly the problem is I gave the judges too much beer.
Hey, I'm not twittering. I'm just reading them.
So we're going to go to another emailed question.
Oh, email. How to paginate results from large indexes? Yeah, this is a tough one.
That's too small.
This is Dimitri Khan. It looks like I forgot to put his last name on there.
Dimitri. Is Dimitri here?
No, he said he wasn't going to be here.
Oh, Dimitri's not here.
But I think he's watching.
Yes. Hello at home, Dimitri. Okay, so on this wiki page, it says that if you're going to drill down very deep, yeah, so the documentation here, I believe, is off because, yeah, the problem that happened here is a feature got added, it got documented, and then the feature got commented out of the code because it had problems before it was released. But apparently, the documentation was left on the wiki page. So, somebody with a laptop in the audience, please go edit the wiki.
That's the only wiki
Oh, the
mistake.
wiki's still down? Damn it. All right, so, but let's get to where's the question here? Does the heavy transmission apply to distributed faceting? If yes, why the hell is this? Can you propose a solution to make pagination work for large indexes, terabytes? Okay, so I'm going to ignore the question about things like page score and page doc, which doesn't actually work. Does the heavy transmission apply to faceting? So what this question is about is if you really want to facet on all of your documents, how come this isn't a problem, or is it a problem? The answer is the distributed faceting uses multiple passes. The first pass is about getting facet counts on every shard, and then it uses heuristics to figure out for each of those constraints which ones should be considered the top constraints. And it's actually pretty sophisticated. There was a good write-up on the mailing list a little while back, sort of explaining what happens in each of those passes and what optimizations it can do to say things like, based on the count I got from this shard and this shard and this shard, and based on the total number of docs that match, I can determine that this count will never be in my top, so I can throw it away. But the real key is, though, once it has figured out what values or what constraint values are probably at the top, then the second pass goes and asks every shard for the count for that value, even if it didn't get it before, so that it knows the count it's giving back is the real, accurate, exact count, right? So that's why it can get those facet counts from all the shards without having this problem of sending back. It doesn't have to send every value back, right? It does the exact counts for what is heuristically guessed or computed to be the most likely top constraints. The last part of the question, a solution to making pagination work for large indexes. Large index, full total pagination, deep pagination is really hard. What works very well in any case is to follow the examples of a lot of APIs, like the Twitter API, for example, where they don't let you say, do a search, follow a timeline, give me everything, and I'm going to go page 1, page 2, page 3, where all you know is the page number or the row number. What they say is, there's going to be some sort criteria, and you tell us the minimum value of that criteria, and we'll give you everything starting from there on. And then when you get the next, so you say, give me results, and it says, here's 100 results, and if you want to ask for the next 100, you have to have some, in the example of the Twitter API, you have to tell it the ID of the last one, and you only get results sorted by ID. If you have some unique ID or some other value like that is unique per document, then you can say, okay, well, I got up to n. Now give me n plus 1 on. Okay, well, that time I got up to m. Give me m plus 1 on. That'll work. You can do that in Solr. The problem is people don't want to do that. They want to do it by things like score or price, where many documents can have the same value. If you're willing to introduce that concept that is something you will sort on, if, for example, you have a terabyte index and all you really care about is getting all of the documents back that match some query, but the order doesn't matter, that what matters is that you get them all, then you can sort on something like ID and ask for, 100. And then your next request, you filter by ID greater than whatever the last one was, and ask for the next 100, and that should work. Or you can go put this in a relational database and put a cursor over it. Yeah, that's Robert's response there. I'm going to assume that answers like put your data in MySQL will not be accepted by most people, so I am not going to bother throwing that out. Any other feedback from the judges or our moderator? Yeah, Yannick needs to talk more. What? What are you talking about? I just explained why it isn't.
But he's talking about paging.
Does the same heavy transmission? Oh, yes, sorry. If you did the deep,
That was a good explanation of how normal faceting works, though. But
The problem is, when you're the chump, you have to read and think at the same time, and I am not very good at doing both of those. I'm pretty good at one of them. So yes, I sort of glossed over I'm not going to answer that. I glossed over the crux of the question, which is about the deep paging and the transmission applying to distress. That is true. That does apply. Okay. All right. Anything else you want to say other than to make me look like an idiot?
Can you answer two now?
Can I answer two now? Why the hell isn't? Oh, damn you. Wait. Right. So it applies because it's still, you're sending lots and lots of values in order to get the top ones. I mean, either way, you have to,
The short answer is because 99% of people out there care about the top K, and paging through deep paging through facets normally doesn't matter.
Well, that's why it's implemented.
We haven't
that way.
prioritized it.
Right.
That's the
Yes.
real.
Sorry.
You could do things, right? You know,
Yes.
you could cache certain values and write faceting things specifically for this problem, but it's kind of esoteric in my opinion.
Right. Not a lot of people care about faceting over a billion, and paging through a billion. Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes, that is. Do you already have a book? No. Do you want a book? Maybe. All right. So this is an excellent point, which I totally glossed over, which is the part people don't think about in a lot of cases is when they say, I'm going to go fetch all of the results, and I need insert name of some really hard to compute thing here. How come I can't do that efficiently at the same time? The answer is if you're going to go get all of the fucking results, just do it in the client. Like, you're looping over all of them anyways, you pull them back. You can add up the numbers yourself. Like, you don't need... Like, why make Solr spend the extra time to compute a bunch of stuff on the fly when you're getting all the data back you want? So that is a big factor in a lot of the things that are optimized in Solr.
So the problem isn't getting large number of results, I don't think, is the issue with paging deeply. The issue is that when you get the priority queue currently in Lucene and Solr, except for the stuff that Robert added, the priority queue grows with the size because you have to get 1 through 1 million there, only return the last 10. That's paging deeply as opposed to returning large number of results all at once.
No, I know, but we've moved past that part. I'm talking about why the facet counts with the paging deeply. Like, just compute that on the client side is what I'm saying.
Sure, but what he's getting at is how do I get better deep paging without blowing out my memory?
Right, and my answer was you use more of a cursor type approach so that the priority queue doesn't get that big because you are still only asking for the top 100 things sorted by ID where you have already filtered by ID. So the priority queue never gets bigger than 100. You're not actually using pagination anymore. You're using what is...
Solr cursors.
Yeah, using a cursor across your data where you're filtered. Right.
That's good.
All right.
So I think we have time for one more audience question. Sorry for the other people waiting. Go ahead. Tell us your
sorry.
name.
What was your name again?
Venkat.
What?
Venkat.
What? Oh, okay. All right, sorry. Go ahead. I feel the part I feel really bad about. The part I feel really bad about is I know we have met before, and I still don't remember your name, and I feel really bad about that. I'm sorry. All right. What was your question?
Yeah, I recognize it.
This is a typical e-commerce price facet issue. Basically, we want dynamic price facets. The idea is each time, whenever we are adding new taxonomy, the site taxonomy was changing every week. So whenever we are adding new categories, business end up writing, the new price ranges for that particular category, deploying that, making the code changes, it's a big pain.
Right.
Okay. The idea, I think you got the idea right. For CDs music, the price ranges are something. For TVs, it's different. Tablets, it's different. So each time, whenever there is a special offers coming up, Black Friday or a summer sale. So the taxonomy was changing very fast. Business wants the results, okay? Different price factors. So we end up, maintaining, more than 30, 40 price buckets based on the taxonomy.
Right.
So what I am trying is at the server side, basically Solr side, I was after query execution for each such result, I was grabbing the price. I was doing some little bit of statistical analysis. I mean the min max, first quartile, second quartile, like that.
Sure, yeah.
And I was trying to find, I mean, a range basically.
Right.
Okay. For
yeah, that didn't work for you, right?
I mean, it's basically for 1 million, it's nearly taking, I mean, 70,
Right.
80.
Well, yeah, I mean.
So, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, really hard to solve the problem, but at the same time, it's a single node again, single node.
Yeah.
For 1 million, it is taking, I mean, nearly 80 million, I mean, 80
Right,
milliseconds.
yeah. Okay,
So,
okay. Oh, sorry, did you have more? Sorry. Go ahead. No, keep going. I didn't mean to stop you.
I mean, this is what I tried. I mean, basically, I took the simple facets code and started writing, I mean, all this analysis and
right.
I was computing the ranges. Then I was calling the regular facet component, which is doing this one.
Yeah, okay.
But average hit is something like that, I mean, 52.
Right, yeah, the performance is sort of
I mean,
painful,
for a
yeah. Okay,
typical,
so to sort of, because you and I speak e-commerce, so we understand. To elaborate for people we're talking about here. So if you're trying to do a search for, a store, and you want to offer people price range filters, right? You want to be able to say, hey, you did a search now, like here you can drill down by price. The problem is one size doesn't fit all for price range filters. If you're, running an e-commerce site where you sell all sorts of crap, and some categories you want the price range filters to be $0 to $10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 and above. But if you're also selling in a different category, cars, those price range filters are kind of terrible because nothing matches. So the question is, you can define some rules that say for this category, these are the price ranges I want to offer. For this category, these are the price ranges I want to offer. You can implement that either in a plugin or in your front end site. But the example he's pointing out is that even those, you don't want those to be really static, right? In an ideal world, you want those to evolve so that as, for example, you might start with your tablets category if you sell tablet computers, and as the tablet market, evolves and there's price wars and the prices go down, and you don't want to have to necessarily constantly be updating your code or whatever. This is a really hard problem for a reason that I haven't actually talked about, which is even if you had a perfect solution to do the statistical analysis and look at it and figure it out, you still have to then be very smart in your code to not wind up offering people. And this is the example someone actually gave where they were like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just look at the standard deviations and all that. And I'm like, okay, so here's some sample data. These are the price ranges you're gonna offer, even if you implement this and it's fast enough. You're gonna offer $0 to $7.87, and then you're gonna offer $7.88 to
like
15. No, I know you understand this, but I'm just explaining to other people why this is a really hard problem in general. And the problem is, so all of that logic that you have to put in to actually give the user useful price ranges that actually are good ways of dividing your data, it gets really hard. And even if you have a good algorithm, doing that in real time gets really hard, which is why my suggestion is to not try to do it in real time. Because seriously, even if you were doing it in real time, you have to be careful to do it based on the category they're in. You don't want to do it based on the search, because you don't want somebody to search for what was my dress shoes? You don't want someone to search for dress shoes and get one set of price ranges and then filter by, or sort of add a filter on, the manufacturer, and suddenly your heuristic has changed the price ranges because maybe they were very happy with the fact that they had a $30 to $40 filter, and then suddenly you've changed it so that you're only searching Docker shoes, and now they don't even have a $30 to $40 filter, and they're really pissed, right? So while you want these things to be changing as your document sets, your total document sets for your taxonomy are changing, you don't want it to change per query. And if you don't want it to change per query, don't do it per query. Do it as part of a batch process, right? Do it as something, I guarantee you most people that you work with in your company who are like, these need to change, they're gonna be happy if it changes daily. Or, the really crazy guys are gonna be happy if it changes hourly. So have your external process that is crunching all your data in Hadoop or in HBase or in whatever the hell key value store, iterates over Solr with deep paging. Crunch your data to say, for every category, what all of the individual prices I have, compute my stats, figure out my ranges, and then update that in some data store, which you have a custom plugin or your front end queries and says, I know I'm searching category shoes. What is the current value I should use? And it caches that. What? That's an OLAP cube, right? So, you know, have your OLAP cube that's keeping track of all this stuff that you are updating every 6 hours to say, for this category, this is what I should use as my price range. That is how I mean, the last time I worked on this problem, we actually tried to build this for somebody, and they said, I don't trust it. I want, you know, to them it was much more important to have tools where they got reports back on the statistics, and then they could say, tablet prices are coming down, we should tweak the filters. You know, so they tweaked the ranges through a GUI after looking at a report about the categories. And it was somebody like every day, they just, in their inbox, they got a report on the stats per category, and they would go, oh, you know, I should probably tweak the price ranges on tablets this week. If you want to do it automated, you could do it automated, but I would not do it per request in Solr. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's my feedback. Anybody else? Are you guys awake?
You're awesome. I can't believe someone was heckling you on Twitter. You're like a minute 20 over.
I can absolutely believe someone was heckling me on Twitter. All right.
Should we go for one more question, or
do we want to do one more? Is there anybody? All right. We have one more from a slide. Let's do the last one from the slide. Thank you very much for your question, by the way. I appreciate it. All right. So last question. What? Oh yeah.
Come get a book.
Why not?
A long one.
Grab a book. So we got one last question on the slides here. How to order by similarity? Suppose I've computed an item similarity metric based on how frequently people have selected item A, also selected mine. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Is Solr a good tool to make use of such information, even if it might be assembled elsewhere? What's the best way to represent this? For example, I might want to query items that match some term where a component of the scoring algorithm is similar to items in the user's basket of previously selected items. Is Michael Sokol out here?
That's me.
Oh, hey, Michael. Nice to meet you. Let me think about this. So, what's that? Is that a talk tomorrow? Oh.
Yeah, the question is, should you do this or not? I mean,
right.
Maybe it's not the right tool. I don't know. But.
Right. No, yeah, I understand. What? First answer is talk to Trey. So, I mean, I think, yeah. So there's stuff like this that's, I'm trying to think to like practical experience to like convey anecdotes, because that's what they always tell you when you learn how to speak in public, is to convey anecdotes. And swear a lot. I absolutely learned that in I don't know. So, so if you have the data on the user, right, and you know what they like, right, one thing you can definitely do is have, for example, like a custom query plugin that, assuming you get that information from somewhere, right, assuming you have it, you know, in some data store or you send it as part of the request, you know what the user likes in terms of document IDs, right? We'll assume, because that's your example here is I know documents, sure. Right? I know documents the user likes. Yeah. If you can map the documents the user likes to terms in those documents, either by having your plugin query for the documents the user likes and getting those terms back, or by doing that in an external process when you found out the user liked those documents, you can then use those terms as part of very complicated boost queries. This is, for example, how more like this works. It's a component and a handler in Solr. It hasn't gotten a lot of love over the years because it's hard to really make it work in the way people want it to work, because everybody wants it to work a little differently.
Let me just react to that, because, yeah, sure, what you're doing there basically is like a content-based similarity, and I think the question is really about, I've got some other idea.
I thought this was your question. What do you mean I think this question? I think this question is about, now you've already forgotten what the question is about?
I wrote it yesterday.
Okay, what do you think the question is about? Sorry.
It's really about, I've got some other idea about what the similarity is, and it's probably based not on the content of the documents, but on the usage on the website.
Okay, right. So you have run your Mahout job and determined that people who like document 1 also like document 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So you could definitely build some very interesting queries where you say, find me all cat videos, because that's what the user typed in, cat videos, boosted by, and then you put in the IDs of every document that you know the user liked. with the, to pull out the terms. I'm babbling. But the point is, you could do that. But the other thing you could do is be crunching the documents that have similar relationships to extract out the terms that are common amongst them, or figure out why, once you have found by crunching your logs that document A and document B are similarly liked by many people, you could try to extract why they're similarly liked, what do they have in common, and then use that as a boost. That is going to be probably more efficient than the other way, but less precise, for example, that is one thing you could do. Is it a good idea? I don't know. I would definitely, you'd have to experiment with that and find out. There's another option?
Yes, you can
Mike, to a mic. We have the most number of mics in this room that we have ever had in a Stump the Chump session. There's no excuse for people not to be using a mic.
One of the options, once you get similar documents, generate some identifier for this group and index it.
Yes.
So you will have less terms inside.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That was kind of what I was
the
getting
idea is
at.
to cluster the documents
Right.
and store cluster IDs with the documents.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't work for arbitrary pairwise. Document A is similar to document B, but if it's documents A, B, Q, X, R, Z are all kind of similar, or we've determined they are in a cluster, then updating those documents with a common field that you can then boost out, that could definitely be handy. What's that? Right. Yeah. So, okay, and we have another comment from the audience here. Sorry, what was your name?
Yeah, my name is Kamal.
Kamal.
I think we have a similar use case. What we did is we pre-computed similarities and we stored that as a payload. And in the search, we're using the payload and a custom scoring algorithm to retrieve the documents.
But so when you say you computed the similarities and put them in a payload, so if A is similar to B, what did you put in the payload?
In the payload, it will be basically for each document, the similar documents along with a score will be put in the payload.
Oh, okay. So for example, if A is similar to B, C, and X, then in document A, you put in the IDs of B, C, and X along with a payload that says how similar there are.
Right.
But then what did you do with that at query time?
At the query time, we use a scoring algorithm to score based on the values of those.
Oh, I see. You know the user liked documents B, C, and X.
Right.
So when they searches for cat videos, you include in that query B, C, and X, and the score comes from the payload because that's a great idea. Yeah, grab a book. Come get a book. Come on, grab a book. Get a book. So that is probably the best answer I could think of to this question. Does anybody have a better answer to this question?
I don't know.
You don't even know what the fucking question is anymore, do you? That's how we know it's probably time to wrap up. So while the judges confer with our moderator about who has won, I have a few announcements to make, and I can actually read these, I'm sure.
Moderator, come.
So the first off, I'd like to thank LinkedIn again for sponsoring all the refreshments and getting our judges hammered. The second thing I would like to remind everybody is the party tonight is at Tipsy Crow. The judges are still talking. Does anybody else have a quick question? Sorry, what was your name?
Sergey.
What's that?
Sergey.
Sergey. Okay, go ahead, Sergey.
Okay, so basically, the question is probably everyone wants to ask this question. So, when are we going to have rebalancing for the Solr shards?
Oh, okay. So the question was about rebalancing in Solr Cloud. So in 4.3, which is going to come out any day now, there is a shard splitting feature that will be available. It is not an automatic rebalancing. It is a very explicit, I want to split my shards. But that is coming extremely soon. I don't know if there's any thinking about or working on the sort of notion of an automatic rebalancing. I don't believe so, because that doesn't really fit with the sort of the model. But you will definitely be able to say, hey, I would like more shards now. Give me more shards, and just do it.
Yeah, so basically this is the answer, and we heard some rumors, but this is a confirmation.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the feature exists. It has been committed. It works. It's being tested. It's just not in an official release, but it will be in 4.3. Okay? Cool.
Thank you.
So come grab your book. Tika in action. Congratulations. What? Oh, that's right. Sorry. Shalin is here. I can actually say this. Shalin and Ansham, stand up, guys. These are the two guys that did shard splitting. Shalin committed it, and Ansham worked with him. Thank you very much for that. It is not very often These guys flew out from India for this conference. It's not very often that I get to go, oh, right, Shalin over here worked on that. That's pretty rare for me, so I should definitely point that out.
One more question?
All right, one more question, sure.
Okay, it should be quick.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, with grouping, is there any way or any future way to do like an aggregate scoring function? So, I'm dealing with e-commerce, SKUs, and products.
Right.
So I basically want to sort by like inventory, on-hand inventory value or so the
Yeah.
aggregate of the SKUs that are within.
I believe that is possible. I don't know what. I think it is definitely possible with the existing grouping code. I don't think it's implemented, but I think it's the way the grouping code works. I think it should be possible. I don't know off the top of my head how hard it would be to do, but based on what I remember about the grouping algorithm,
it seems like it would be close.
Yeah, it should. I think you're right. I think that is. I think someone just needs to dive into it and make it work. Yeah, that's what I say. I think at the lower level, it's already there. There's just no exposure to it at a Solr API. So we just need somebody to jump in and write some tests and add the hook. Decide what the configuration
parameter
parameters
would
should
be,
look like, and write some tests that show that it works, and then make it call the appropriate. I believe it has to do with the grouping collector that gets used. Where it would get interesting though is in the distributed case. You have interesting problems in terms of because the grouping already you have to be on a single shard, so that actually wouldn't because you're talking about per group, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the distributed cases actually shouldn't be that bad. What may be hard is like sorting the groups by that number might be hard. I'd have to look at that again.
Does it just take basically the best document for that group as far as how it calculates?
So the way the grouping stuff works right now is there is some, imagine you're not doing any grouping and you have some notion of how you sort your documents, and then you apply grouping to it. Whatever that sort of first sort would be, price or score or whatever, that's how the documents per group are picked. And then whatever the first one is sort of applies. There are other ways to sort of sort the groups, but it's still based on the values from the best document. So you define what is best per group, and then when you sort groups, it's based on the properties of whatever was best, even if it's different sorts, right? So if you sort documents by price, but groups by popularity, the popularity of a group is determined by the popularity of the lowest priced document in that group, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But if you just want to compute things like the sum of the price per group, you're fine. If you want to sort by the sum of the price, that I think gets more complicated, and I'm not sure how easy that is to do.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, no problem. So do we have winners? We have winners. Okay. Do we know what the prizes are? Yeah, sorry, the prize. I should have said this a long time ago. The prizes are Amazon gift certificates. We'll be emailing those out to people. If you are a winner and you didn't email your question in, so we don't have your email, you just came up to the mic and said hi, make sure you come up and give Steve your email address after you find out that you win so that we know how to email you your prize. What order are we doing this in? Go ahead.
3 first, then 2,
All
then
right.
1.
Third place winner, drum roll. Done.
Mikhail.
Big surprise. Big surprise. Second place winner?
Dmitry.
Dmitry, with the large, the pagination. Excellent. Congratulations, Dmitry. Not here if I remember correctly. And who is our first place winner? First place winner is
Artyom.
How to limit suggestions with unique terms. Oh, yes, the freaking, the cats. All right, no, that's good. There is an advantage to being the first question. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, you really got to warm up on this one. So, all right, well, congratulations to all our winners. Thanks to our panel and our judges. It's hard work to sit up here and get shit-faced. Map is on the screen. Paper maps are outside. Don't forget your badge. Thank you, everybody.